welcome. The show is in honor of, and we have some great friends of ours that are with us once again this year, Keith Mollett and Joe Skinner. Keith served in Iraq, Joe served in Vietnam, and both of these gentlemen are true American heroes in my estimation. You know, I know personally some of the things that they encountered and went through while serving our country, and they did so with such great respect. And of course, our co-host, Paul Dietrich. Paul, you had a couple things you wanted to open up on?
Sure. The first thing I'd like to start off with is that coming up this month here on Staten Island, we have a very important function. On January 14th, that's a Monday, up at the College of Staten Island from 9:30 to 3:30 in the Dolphin Room. That's right in the center of the College of Staten Island. There's going to be a blood drive. And it's important because if you need blood, it's got to be there in the bank for you to get it. And a lot of times, particularly around holidays, it may not be there enough for you to get. So a very important item. My VFW post, we co-sponsor this with the College of Staten Island for a blood draw. So if you're able to give blood, please go to the College of Staten Island on Monday, January 14th, 9:30 to 3:30. It's in the Dolphin Room right in the center. When you come into College of Staten Island, get a parking permit so you don't get a ticket on your car while you're there, but it's a good thing to do. The other item that we want to talk about is that the Blue Water Navy Act, and we've spoken about this before. And the Blue Water Navy Act, for anybody that doesn't know what it was about, basically, if you had boots on the ground in Vietnam or on some ships that were very close to the shore or went up the estuaries and the rivers, you were eligible for benefits under the Agent Orange exposure criteria. However, it's a chemical that was used for defoliant, and it was in the water. And as everybody that's been on a ship knows, the way that they make drinking water, shower water, fresh water, is through the evaporators. So if it was in the ocean, and if you dumped it on the land, it was in the ocean, it had to be in the water that was being given to the sailors and the people that were on the ships. It would also cover those. There was a number of air bases in Thailand where they used it on the perimeters to keep the foliage down again. And there again, not everybody is covered, even though I can't understand how if you were on the base you wouldn't get exposed to it. It's there, it's everywhere. The third area was on the DMZ in Korea. There's a period of time when it was used on the DMZ for the same exact reason, for foliage. And only part of those people that served in Korea are covered. They didn't cover it for the entire period that they were using it. So you have some veterans that are covered for any conditions they might have and some that are not. It passed unanimously in the House last year. Unfortunately, the Senate didn't act on it. And in fact, one senator came out and said the reason they didn't act on it was it was too expensive. I'm sorry, but that if you're putting people in harm's way, you have to pay to take care of them. Absolutely. When they come back. And I just think this is an abomination. And call your senators and tell them this is ridiculous. It needs to get reintroduced this year, has to go back through the House again. And think about it. This was passed last year unanimously in the House. Everybody in the House voted for it. Senate said it's too expensive. Find the money somewheres, but we've got to take care of these people. So that's my little comment on it. Right now, it did not get enacted, and we've got to start all over again with the legislature. I'll be talking to our representative here on Staten Island, Max Rose, later this month, and this is one of the subjects I'll be talking with him about, and again in March when I go down to D.C.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Well, every year we do a show in tribute to Black History Month with Black veterans who served there. And ironically, talking to Joe and Keith before we started the show in the green room, and they both said, in the military, especially for Keith with the Iraq, there was no Black history to talk about. We were all military. We were white and black, but we were all military. We served together. And Joe said pretty much the same for Vietnam in his era, and there may have been hits and misses. So the reality of it was that we all came from the same page, and we all served on the same thing. But I want to open the discussion up anyway. Joe, tell us a little bit about your time with Vietnam.
Yeah, I was the fourth. I had three older brothers, and as they finished high school, they all enlisted into the service. The oldest one enlisted into the Air Force. The next two into the Navy. I got that backwards. The oldest one enlisted into the Navy, and the next two enlisted into the Air Force, and I joined the Marine Corps. As far as the Black history goes, and determining the prejudice and whatnot, I didn't see any at all. None at all. I went from boot camp to advanced infantry training, home on leave, to Camp Pendleton, and I was in Vietnam. And Vietnam, I didn't see none of that because it's you cover mine and I cover yours. Didn't matter what color, where you came from, what religion, what denomination you were. We were all the same color. We all were green. We all bled red. And you know, my time in the service was I seen no segregation at all when I was in there. We all were treated the same. And
it may not have been really good treatment, but you were all treated the same.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that was a statement somebody made. We were all treated the same, but we were treated like garbage. You know.
In boot camp, you know.
You're nothing.
We had sergeant drill instructors, and they hated everybody. My whole team, my whole platoon was from New York, and they hated New Yorkers. But anyway.
Isn't that always the way? When I went to boot camp, same thing. Okay? Had a whole platoon from New York, and they gave us a guy from Kansas. And at that time, if you were from New York, you were a gangster. You were a gangster. So, Keith, how about you? You're
like you guys were saying, when I went through my basic in AIT in Fort Benning, Georgia, I didn't know what to expect. And, you know, like you say, like when you joined up, everybody was from New York and you had that one guy. We were just the opposite. Everybody that was in my platoon was from the Deep South.
Really?
Except for 3 people from New York, Washington, D.C., and myself from Jersey. My platoon sergeant considered all 3 of us as thieves. So he said, these are city boys, you gotta watch them closely. Nail the beds down, etc. But the one thing that I did enjoy is like we're saying with the racism in the military, I didn't see it because when one person go down to push up, we all go down.
right.
And this is something that some of the kids that were from the South, they were raised a certain way. I had 4 guys that were there who have never been that close to a black guy before. Then they found out that, you know, the old saying that everybody heard of, we all bleed red.
Yeah.
So this is something that they all got into their heads. And when you sit down there and you're doing your training, you always got your battle buddy with you. And your battle buddy could be anybody. I just so happened to be a battle buddy of one guy who had never gotten that close to a black guy before. And he found out that, you know, we're all here to train the same. I helped him breaking his weapon down, putting it back together. When I'd done that, he opened his eyes up, and here we are. That was in 1983. Here we are, 2019 now. I still keep in touch with that young man. His first child, he named Keith. He respected me, I respected him. And it went that way throughout my military career. If there were any racism, they kept that out of the military. They kept it away, and that's from the private all the way up to a general.
Right.
They kept that away from, once you put that uniform on, you close your eyes. We're all the same. We might sound differently with our voice, but we're all the same. You prick me, I'm gonna bleed red. I prick you, you're gonna bleed red. We're all brothers. Military-wise, we're all brothers, because I depend on you to watch over me like you depend on me to watch over you. And if you don't treat me right, I'm gonna still make sure you survive, so when we get home.
Well, when I served, I came out of the Navy, and once again, my experiences back then were the same as you guys. Okay, we were all the same color, and then close your eyes is a good thing. Mm-hmm. When you open your eyes, you're all the same. Okay, mm-hmm. And I found that there was no mistreatment of anybody. Okay. Except for that green guy that we got on the ship, but we took care of him. But when I got out, and when I left the military, it was towards the end of the Vietnam conflict. Okay, so we still had guys over there getting killed in Nam. Okay, and I was discharged from the Navy. And when I got out, I became a police officer, and then I saw. It was horrendous what was going on in this country at that time, mm-hmm. Okay? And there was racial problems back then. There was anti-Vietnam problems. It was, everybody...
It's all mashed into one.
Everybody was looking for a reason to
tear up the city.
To act up, exactly, right. So
I look at it though from a little bit different perspective, and I commanded troops. I had black, white. I didn't have green, but just about every color. And I also had female veterans, and we really tried to have a black female veteran here today, but unfortunately she's got to work. Not like Keith. But in any case, the military, everything that I saw in the military in 35 years, went out of its way to not make race an issue. I sat on many boards where you decided anything from retention, whether somebody could stay in the service, whether somebody was going to get promoted, whether someone was going to get a command, become a particular rank in the enlisted. And that was never what was talked about. Was talked about what does this person do better than every other candidate? That was the condition for that person getting that position, or in the case of not being retained, what did they do wrong that makes you want them not to be in the service with the rest of us? Because that was the feeling. It was we were all one group, and that was just how it was. So that's what I saw from my perspective. So I didn't really see any racial issues. I had integrated platoons. There was no difference. The only difference I saw during my time period was I could not have females in some of my combat engineer platoons, because at that time females were excluded from combat or from units that would have a direct combat role. So they couldn't be in the combat engineers. And the strange part to me at that point, I remember thinking to myself, well, most of these kids, because they were all kids to me, were going to end up in either Iraq or Afghanistan, because I took command the day before the war in Iraq started. So the odds were you were going to one or the other. My thought was, we're not allowing them into a combat engineer battalion because they'll be in combat, but you're sending them to Iraq, where you can be walking down the street minding your own business and get shot or blown up. I said, this doesn't make any sense. So even then, it didn't make sense, the difference between them. But that was my perspective on it. So I just throw it out there for what it's worth.
Well, it's good that you brought that to us, you know, the perspective, because that also would reflect all of the ranking officers that were over there. They pretty much on the same page as you, I assume.
Well, when you sit on a board, for example, I've been chairman of the board, so I was the senior officer, but you normally have, for a retention board, you'll normally have senior enlisted members, you'll have officers. So it's a wide group of people, and you're all focused on the same thing. Who is the best candidate, or in the case of where you're getting rid of somebody, who is the worst candidate that you don't want? And the one case I remember was a case of somebody that was found with a positive drug test. And a positive drug test pretty much is you're being removed from the service unless you're very, very junior, and there's real hope that you can be rehabilitated. And I remember the board discussing this particular case because it was a person that had been in for probably more than 10 years. And I remember the discussion ended up with, do you want somebody that's using drugs in the foxhole next to you with a weapon? That was the reason that the decision was made to not keep that person. Didn't have anything to do with whether they were black, white, whatever. I believe it actually, in this case, it was a female soldier, but the point was that was the determinator, not that she was female. So.
I can remember from day one, when I enlisted in the Marine Corps, you joined the Brotherhood,
yep,
which exists to this day. Mm-hmm. I see people all over the place. Simplify. Thank you for your service. In Vietnam, when you went out in the field, like I said, there was no color. It's you got my back, I got your back, and that's the way it exists the whole time in the Marine Corps.
And God knows you were in enough firefights.
Absolutely.
Over there. I mean, you were in the jungle 2/3 of your time.
Yeah. And they
getting shot at.
Yeah. And shooting back. But I had agreement with them. I could shoot them, but they couldn't shoot me. So it worked out very well.
And they agreed to that.
Yes, worked out very well.
Great thing, yeah.
And,
you didn't have such luck in Iraq, did you?
Yeah. we had it pretty easy by the time I got there, and no boasting or anything, but the Marines cleared the way for us to get through.
Absolutely.
So when I said, don't do that. Yeah. So just keep in mind, people, you know, in each branch of the military, in secret, we still battle.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We still battle.
Absolutely.
But once we get in the field and start working, one love, one blood.
I'll say in Iraq, the Marines were in the worst possible areas. I don't think most of the Army wanted to go there. Western Iraq was a horrible place to visit.
They kept us out of there.
Was worse than Sadr City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They kept us out of there. They said the Marines are over there. Trust and believe. You don't want to get in their way. Their orders are to shoot to kill. You don't want to get in their way.
Well, that's the way we were trained.
Yeah.
And even now, you know, I belong to a couple of organizations, Vietnam Veterans of America and the American Legion. And as far as blacks joining, I think we have 2 blacks in each organization. And I'd like to offer an invitation to come on down and join up and reestablish this brotherhood we had. And all I want to say is, you know, don't be out there alone. There's a lot of places.
The worst thing that can be is alone.
Yeah. And I didn't talk about the VFW that Paul's so much a part of, Veteran Foreign's War. You know, coming out the cold, and join an organization. That's also a brotherhood. that, you know, if you have issues, they will help you.
It's a long time overdue. Because I know when I left the military, I left the military. I mean, if you ask me, were you in the service? I say, you know, I just walk and I'd keep walking by. And did I join the American Legion? No, I didn't. Did I join the VA? No, I didn't. Okay, later on in life, I'm sorry I didn't. Because there are so many things that I actually precluded myself from, and I did it to myself. I have nobody to blame. I can't say Paul Dietrich did that to me. I did it. Okay, and there's a lot of people out there in the same boat that because of color, you're not going into the organization. Well, you left the military that made us all the same color. Okay? And all it takes is for you to walk back through that door again. And I guarantee you, whether it's the VVA, the American Legion, or the VFW, or whatever organization, you're going to walk through that door and be readily accepted by everybody in that room. Okay? Because it'll be the same as if you were getting ready to go into a firefight and you were buddying up with somebody. The same thing. Am I right, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely.
New member comes in. What do, Joe? We ask them to stand up and talk about what they did in the service.
Yep.
We don't ask them what color they are.
No.
Introduce yourself. Tell us where you were, because every one of us was somewheres that we didn't want to be.
That's right.
That's right.
No, we went where our government sent us.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to reiterate on what you were saying with, because I just got 3 people that I barely know that they've joined the military. They've done like maybe 2-3 years in the military, and then they just got out. And they don't realize that you can still join the American Legion. They don't realize that.
You can still have a brother or a sister.
Right.
Yes,
and I have also a couple of soldiers I went overseas with. And like you were saying, the guy, he actually looked at me and he said, well, what is that hat you're wearing? And I had on my VFW hat. And I said, well, I'm with the VFW because I've been overseas. I'm eligible. And I'm also with the American Legion. Aren't you? And he's like, oh, no. Black people don't go there. I said, really?
Yeah.
They don't. Well, show me one who doesn't. I said, you're eligible for these things. There's people there that can help you with whatever you need. Before I joined the military, I always looked up to my uncle. He was in the American Legion and VFW up in Summit. And I always admired him because he got into, you know, he got his uniform, he'd go to these meetings, and to make a long story short, I sat there and always wanted to join and didn't think I did. And guess who got me to join?
Your uncle?
Yeah, my Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, Uncle Paul.
Uncle Paul.
He stayed
Uncle
on
Paul.
me and he said, just come down here, Keith, and have a meeting. You don't have to join, just come down and sit in the meeting. When I found out what it was about, then I said, okay, I'm ready. Did I not?
Yep.
I said, I'm ready.
Uncle Paul's still trying to get me to join the VFW. But
Tomorrow there's a meeting, 10 o'clock.
I know. I'm busy. I'd like to mention one thing. The VVA, the Vietnam Veterans of America, we have a monument on Manor Road and Martins Avenue. And it's a real beautiful monument. And every June, we have a day of remembrance for the 85
We're there every year.
names on the wall. And each year it seems to get bigger and bigger. And these families have been coming all these years, and it's not only the families, it's the families now, it's the nieces, the nephews, the grandkids, and it's a beautiful ceremony. And in September, we have the POW MIA ceremony at the monument. And so if you get a chance, come visit the monument. Like I said, it's on Manor Road and Martins Avenue, and it's open on the weekends.
Keith, you were talking before about your platoon when you came back and how you pretty much forced them to go to the VA. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'll make it real quick for you. We got back from over in Iraq. Of course, we go down to Fort Dix first for demobilization. When we got down there, that's when the one of the officers there, he was a colonel, he was letting us know that when you get back up to your unit and get released, you know, you go over to the VA, make sure you register at the VA. But they were going over things so quickly that the young soldiers I had did not understand what
because
what
their
was
minds
going
were on
on.
something else.
So the pamphlets that they gave
absolutely.
us, I took the time out. It took me every bit of 12 minutes to read that entire packet that they gave me. And when I read that, I found out how important it was. So we left from Fort Dix. We were coming back to the armory. I had all my soldiers on the bus, and I did a head check, a head count. After I got a head count, found out I had everybody, we made a detour and went straight to the VA hospital in East Orange. Once we got to the VA, I'm sorry, there was a lady, she was standing there, getting off the bus. She said, "Oh Lord, something wrong with the hospital." So I got them all up there. For each individual, it didn't even take 5 minutes. Once they have your information and put it in there, you get a card. They have a nice card, looks like a credit card with the American flag in the corner, your picture, your name. That is yours. Every time you go to the VA, boom, you show them that card, all your information pop up.
And you want to do that simply because someday in the future you might need them. Even if you don't need them right now, if you got the best medical care in the world, do this because it's important. And belonging to the organizations, people like Keith being there as a mentor is why the organizations are important. Because Keith wouldn't let his troops get by. He made them do it. And someday in the future, they'll be thanking you for that. The organizations perpetuate that amongst veterans. So,
yeah,
I would pay my weight in gold to have Keith do that to me. Going back when?
yep.
Too late, though. But
It's never too late. I can take you right now.
okay, let's go.
Yeah, I'm a member of the VA, and I go to Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Veterans Administration, and they have helped me tremendously with all my ailments. And if you just need someone to talk to, you can go. You can do that also.
And almost all of us have hearing problems.
What'd you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, the VA has rated me as, yes, I've lost part of my hearing. I can't claim marital deafness anymore. She knows I'm deaf. But
The bottom line is you don't know what's out there for you unless you get out there and get it.
Yep.
Find somebody like Paul found me, Paul found me,
Right.
and he told me all the benefits that I have I did not even realize. And just by being with
every
him
day when I
and-
came to work, I did that, didn't I?
every day, he would not leave. He was like a thorn.
So I want to thank Joe Skinner. I want to thank Keith Mollett, Paul Dietrich, as always. You guys are gentlemen. You've been here every year with us to celebrate Black History. And we do pay tribute to Black History because it's a very important part of our culture that we do that. So, I want to thank you for watching. In honor of, we appreciate your watching. We will continue to bring you programs like this. Joe, Keith, thank you so much. Paul, thank you. Okay.
Thank you again, Ed.
God bless.